Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Lynn Howard. Lynn has put in the mental, spiritual and physical work to make things happen, surviving abuse, beating cancer and bootstrapping and selling successful businesses across 3 continents. As well as serving on NGO boards across the world, Lynn has seen a lot. She believes in putting in the work first in order to lead by example. She's a global sought-after entrepreneurial coach, consultant, mother, grandmother, and more. And I know you're going to absolutely love this episode. Great, Lynn. It's great to have you on the show. We've been gossiping before we've clicked record, and I'm like, I want to get all this on the show. So it's really good to have you.
Same, Anna. Thank you for having me today.
And I can just tell from the little bit that we've been talking, there's so much synergy within our sort of paths and story. And I'm excited to hear a little bit more about how you've got to this point where you're doing all this amazing stuff for businesses, entrepreneurial stuff with what did you just say to me before you said
entrepreneurial development strategist? I help people get shit done.
But you've been consulting for entrepreneurs and large businesses. So how did this kind of all come about? Because I know you've kind of had quite a sort of traumatic story or journey so far. But how did it all begin?
Absolutely. Well, there's many facets to this, and I'll make it quick because I know we only have so much time. So one is the consulting side started many years ago, even before I officially became a consultant. And I deem myself, like we had the conversation earlier, more of a consultant than a coach, but that's a whole other story. With that being said, I've always been a leader. I've always naturally taken charge, even when I was young, which I'll get to in a second. But as a profession, I really started to dig into that about 20 years ago. And it was actually joining a networking organization that kind of helped catapult me into saying, oh, I do know a lot of things, not just intuitively, but also business-wise. I've started and sold businesses across 3 continents. So it really was this evolution. And what I'll say too, though, is a lot of healing and self-discovery along the way, because if I wasn't putting in the work from my childhood and from the early adulthood domestic abuse, and I wouldn't have been able to get as far as I have. So I'd say it's there have been some little pillars of light along the way, but realistically, it has been me digging in and doing the work and understanding where these things are manifesting from that might have served me, like perfectionism was a survival mechanism for me. And I know you know this. Yeah. And I learned to be the lead dance with that skeleton in the closet versus it always controlling me. And it's just been this kind of evolution of really learning that along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on a few things there with obviously your own, because I think sometimes it's like doing this podcast. I've met some amazing people who I would never have met if I hadn't done the podcast. But at the same time, listening to them share their stories has been quite healing for me. Because
absolutely
in synergy and thinking, God, I am normal, whatever normal is. But listening to people thinking, well, that's why I felt like that. They did as well. And I think when you've had traumatic things or been through some kind of adversity, there is, no matter what it is, whether it's a health condition, whether it's like abuse, or whether it's losing your job, or just, I think everybody's got a story to tell, and nobody's life is perfect. But I agree. But society makes us feel like we have to be this perfect way, or especially, as I was saying before, with the digital age and social media, we see the perfect families wearing the matching pajamas at Christmas, and we perceive that that's how we should be. So I give that.
Just walk down the street in Bangkok, everybody wears them out here. They wear pajamas out with matchy. It kills me sometimes. Yes.
Yeah. But I know that I know that you went through cancer, didn't you? And
Yes.
abuse as well. There's been lots of different things. For
Yeah.
people who could be listening to this, will be inspired when you start sharing exactly what happened and how you went through it. But how did you know when you feel stuck, there's a moment where you feel a little bit stuck or something's happened and you can't move forward. Is there any kind of like bits of advice that you would say to people to help them keep going? Because I know we have a lot of listeners who are trying to make that move into maybe living the life of their dream, or maybe
Yeah.
starting an online business, or just can't see the wood for the trees right now, really.
Absolutely.
Um,
There's a couple of things, Anna. So first of all, I want to say to anybody who's listening, because I know that people come to your podcast for different reasons. Either they identify with the abuse and like overcoming that resilience, or they're really looking for inspiration because they might just be in the thick of it and they can't, like you said, see the forest through the trees. And I'll say this, first of all, you're not alone. Like, you were never alone. If you reach out far enough, and typically is outside of your normal network, there are people out there, such as yourself, Anna, who have experienced, or myself, who have experienced the same thing, who can hold space and support you. So I want you to know that you're never alone. You just have to seek the right community to be able to support you into that next journey. And sometimes those communities don't look the same as you evolve and grow. And that's okay. You learn to love people from afar. The second aspect, and again, personal and professional, is just take that step. Trust that that step will always be there. There were days where I was in some of my darkest moments, even as a child. And I can remember saying, I trust that all I have to do is just take that next step. And I celebrated sometimes as an adult more through some pretty sticky situations, just being alive that day, just being able to take a breath, just being able to wake up in that morning. And I know that might sound silly to some of you, but for those of us that have really went through some very dark times, that is an accomplishment in itself. So those two things to me, and not trying to go like the deep sappy way, but I really, like, to me, that is, regardless if it's the, if it's like the really emotional side, or even just like, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know who I'm with, I don't have, trauma to deal with, still those two things apply to you. Trust that that stuff is going to be there. I mean, like, that is the heartbeat. One of the heartbeats of entrepreneurship is trusting to leap. Like, you don't have to know it all. Just trust that you will land on something. Just trust.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes when you at place A and you want to get to place B, it seems like a mountain to climb, doesn't it? Whatever.
Baby steps.
Yeah, and it's just like you say, taking that first step, because then you're going to take the next step, and just having that courage to keep moving it forward, rather than thinking you're not going to get to that overnight. It's going to take part of the journey, going to take quite a few steps like that.
Absolutely. The majority of the people won't. And I'll actually equate this to sales, because I've been in sales my whole life, on and off. And as a business owner, multiple business owner across many years, we're always in sales. And I can remember being in like hardcore commission only sales. And one thing that I learned, it wasn't the big jobs or the big sales that like rewarded me. Those were great. Those were icing on the cake. But how I got to my quotas were those little itty bitty everyday jobs, those little bitty everyday sales. And it's the same thing with our journey. I love that you said that the journey is many steps. It's ongoing. It's not when you get to that peak, you are done. There's another peak and another peak. And that's okay. When you can just look and do right in front of you, that will get you there. And of course, celebrate the leaps when you can have them, but they're few and far between that are sustainable and really impactful to get you to where you want to go. And once you build momentum, it's like, the rolling stone, it will continue to go.
I definitely think there is a whole mindset thing around it. It's just like
absolutely
trusting the fear of the unknown, really.
And coming from a growth mindset too, and versus a scarcity mindset, like an abundance mindset and a growth mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think this is why a lot of people either stay in an unhappy place or stay in a job, again, in an unhappy place, is because we want to stay in that comfortable, known circle around us. You know, like we know what we can predict our day-to-day outcomes, but actually we might not be fulfilling for us, or we might be really stuck in a horrible situation. But it's taking that step into the unknown and facing your fear that actually then you'll look back and think, gosh, why didn't I do that earlier? Or, you know, it's that, like you say, the brave steps forward always sort of pay off at the end, even if you don't get the results straight away.
Oh, absolutely. Just keep moving forward. It's funny. I have a 25-year-old, my kids are 25, 26, and 26. And I was just speaking with the youngest, my son, and, you know, my kids had to grow up around me being like a mom boss, like entrepreneur, many businesses, running this network organization, overseeing hundreds of entrepreneurs, like, and I put them in the mix of it. Right. So my son the other day, he's like, Mom, just fail forward, fail forward. I'm like, boy, you heard that from me. But that's a great term, like fail forward instead of fall forward. If you're going to, because we're all going to fail. And if you can make it fail forward, don't fail backwards, because that will continue the momentum rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. You just reminded me of something, because I've got a 15 and a nearly 13-year-old keeps saying, I'm preteen, Mum. And my eldest says something similar to me when I was, you know, I'd forgotten something and went back in the house, and I was like looking, I wasn't particularly stressed, but I was rushing, you know. And he said something to me, and I thought, I told you that. And he was like, acting like it was his
yeah. Divine content coming down to you. Boy, I heard you.
It is quite sweet, because they're obviously taking it in by watching. They do say that your children take in not what you say, but what you do all the time. They're picking up all those behaviors and sayings and learnings, you know, so.
Absolutely. While we're on the subject of kids, like I will say too, especially for those, you know, for those that have children, that my children were some of my biggest drivers to get out of situations, to make things different, to be different, to see different. They were also some of my biggest reflections and lessons, because in them, I got to see who I truly was and who I was showing up as. And I think that that's a really good marker, since you have children as well. Like they do reflect so much to us. And when we're open to be able to learn and receive from them. And now, I might have a little bit of a woo-woo side, but I maintain I was your parent. Like, I am never going to be your friend. Like, that's not necessarily true. I was friends with them, and we're super close. But at the end of the day, it wasn't this I'm your friend type of parent. I was still the parent. However, I learned so much about myself and about life through them, because I was open to receive. And I feel like when we can be open, even when we are like hurting badly, when we can be open to see the lesson in the things that are around us, it gives us the ability to have hope and see growth, even when we can't see it within ourselves. If we just allow a little bit of light to shine, there's so much that we can see. And the children have been an instrumental part of that for me.
Yeah, definitely for me as well. Because I think also that the children are really open and honest with you as a parent. So sometimes you get some cold, hard truths to look you in the eye.
Yes, we do.
And also, at one point, I was trying to do everything for them, and I wasn't really looking after myself. And it was because I was trying to do everything in this perfect way. And it wasn't until, in fact, it was talk therapy, even though, you know, like people say bad things about talk therapy sometimes, you know, like as regards to the healing journey, that there's other modalities that are better for healing. But at the time when I had a big legal battle that I was in, and loads of court hearings, it was great to just go in and just offload to this lady, who then ended up becoming a friend. We kind of had to finish the sessions because she was like, I think it's getting to the point that now all we're doing is sharing books and podcasts, and actually you probably don't need me anymore. And I
love that.
I actually interviewed her on this podcast, but she made me realise that actually I didn't need to be perfect. And it sounds silly me saying it now, but it's important to say for other people listening, is that I was constantly saying, I'm fine, because I was keeping myself busy. But she enabled me to just stop and allow myself just to release and burst into tears, or just
I love
release that energy, really. And then it was fine to do that, because then I wasn't having it all cooped up inside me, and then I could
Absolutely.
kind of
Move forward.
yeah, exactly. But I wasn't allowing myself to do that because I saw it as a weakness.
So many people do. You made a couple of really good points. First is I'll say progress over perfection. And that's true in personal and professional, like progress over perfection. And I am a recovering perfectionist, and it is definitely rooted in trauma, but it's also probably something karmic that I brought into this life. Also, another thing that you said, like a lot of people maybe not necessarily agree with talk therapy. Here's the thing. There are many ways to, the old saying, skin a cat, which I hate that, but like get from point A to point B, right? Like 2 + 5 = 7, but so does 6 + 1. So there are many ways, and what you need, especially when you're dealing with something that is super intense emotionally, you do what you need to do in order to get where you need to go.
Yeah.
And do not allow other people to tell you differently, because yes, there are hundreds of millions of modalities. Actually, I was just working with a couple of people today, and they're different. One's a sex therapist, the other one is a healer. I mean, they're both healers, but the other is a healer. And then there was this other person, and like all these people are putting out workshops, and I'm thinking, oh, like the market's being flooded with workshops, and these ladies are going to feel like they're not significant enough, or how will they stand out? And at the end of the day, you'll attract what you need. And it's the same thing with like your healing process. If you're open to it, like do what you need to do in order to be able to
it was great at the time. Yeah, it was great at that time. I didn't go into any of the depths of things that I needed really to do.
You didn't need that then.
But at that time, I didn't need that then. I didn't need that then. I just needed, I remember at the time, I felt drained with feeling like I was a burden to friends. So it was perfect that I could just speak to somebody and just offload to at the time. And as I say, she became really good friend. I was like, can we become friends, or were we like going over the line of the relationship? Yeah, we could be friends.
Love that.
It was great, meeting her, and I learned a lot from that, because I didn't want to go there again. It's that perfect thing of like, I don't adaptive child. Like, I don't want to go in a room where there's a box of tissues and da, 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 da. I know what it's going to be all like, But actually, I forced myself to do it, and I'm so glad I did, because I actually made a really good friend out of it, and it really helped me at the time. So I think it's just sometimes I see a lot around people who are doing healing stuff that they talk down from talk therapy a lot. And I understand what they mean, but like you say, it's a different part of the journey, and you get what you need from that toolbox of things that are there to help you. I often talk about my 3 pillars, because it's called the Freedom Podcast. I have freedom in love, which is all around self-care and self-love, and just really like the love that we give into the world, rather than love in romantic relationships, really. And freedom in money, because it's not about, like Grant Cardone says, making 2 million in 30 days. It's not like that kind of financial freedom. It's just about, if you have that lack and you don't have the abundance and you're struggling, it can give you anxiety and stress. And, money actually helps us live the lifestyle we want. But it's not about the focus about being financially free. And then freedom in mind as well. Because the word mind doesn't really do it justice, but like we were just saying then, that you can release that energy. I know that if anything happens in the future, which is bound to, whether that be, a health thing with myself, or a loved one, or just anything that could happen that's around the corner. Yes, I know now, yes, there'll be like a period of time where I'm obviously upset and going through that thing, but I will be able to, because of the journey I've been on, I'll be able to kind of break it down and work through it. And I believe that really strongly. I'm kind of open to anything that's thrown at me, even though some may not be very nice, So those have been my 3 pillars that have given me equilibrium, because when one of them was, that's the balance for me. When one of them was, when I wasn't looking after myself, or struggling at the beginning of my journey on my business, or my mindset wasn't quite there was this lopsided, feeling within myself. And now I know when I'm not looking after myself, or at the moment I'm doing a juicing thing and trying to walk every day and things like that, or I have my bath at the end of an evening, which is like my wind down with meditation. And so I don't know if you can relate to any of those things within your journey of.
Well, absolutely. I think they're all important. It's funny, when you were speaking, I was thinking of Matthew McConaughey. I do adore him. And he talks about like his 5, I forget what he calls them, but essentially pillars or different parts. And the thing is like, you know, when you feed one, it doesn't have to be starving another pillar. And it's really, like you said, like, and that's what he talks about too, about like making sure that he is keeping as much harmony between them as possible. And it sounds like you're doing the same. And I believe that as well. Like we need to make sure that we're taking care of our mind, body, soul, as well as our environment around us, and feeding the things that are going to help us and our community around us move forward, whatever that community looks like. And when we can break it down into what's really important to us, as you have, I feel like then we can say, okay, am I, you know, and actually I'm reminded of like an old school coaching or consulting tool is like the wheel of life. Like you use the wheel of life. I don't know if you've ever used it when you do goals, and like, you're like, okay, what percentage are you at? Like, that's a snapshot of like, holy crap, I'm like a 0 in relationships right now, or a 0 in my health, or whatever that is. And I think it's really important for you to really like, because we're not one dimensional. We're so complex, and there's so many things happening at once. And I think like, you know, I often get confused, although I'm not a life coach, but I love, you know, entrepreneurship. And the thing is like, it's because I work with all aspects, because one thing affects the other. So if you're depleted in that pillar, like you said, the other pillars are going to be affected, or eventually you're going to burn out in that one particular, and then it's hard to like keep that balance. So I love what you said. And absolutely.
So share with us, you know, I know you have survived abuse. Was that when you were a child?
Well, kind of a long, it's been, so I definitely, I had childhood abuse, emotional, physical. I was oldest. I was also adopted, even though I grew up with my biological mom married my adopted dad. I got adopted afterwards, and I grew up with her in and out of my life. They were broken individuals, and they just weren't healed themselves, and they did the best that they could do with the tools that they have. However, there was a lot of abuse, and I got the brunt of it, being the oldest. And I think some of it was because I wasn't that child. However, when I left the house, my siblings also were, like, everybody was abused, but I definitely had the brunt of it. Then fast forward, I got into a relationship with my children's father, who's not my ex-husband. My ex-husband's actually wonderful, and he's my best friend, but and he was extremely abusive and almost killed me a few times. And it's interesting because I've always been this like really strong-willed, very determined, very forced to be reckoned with, never lost that. Still was that, but behind closed doors. And my mom knew. She actually, like, at one point wouldn't let me come in the house anymore because she didn't want, like, she was trying to have tough love, because she would take the kids once I had the kids, but she would not let me come into the house until I finally called it quits, because I would like literally come with, you know, black eyes and fat lips and like bruises all over, like it wasn't hidden. Or he liked to smother me and choke me, and so I'd have, like, you know, things around my neck and stuff. And so really, like, that, and then surviving cancer outside of him. And it's just been this really interesting, like, dynamic. And there's a couple of things which I know you're going to lead into, like, you know, what helped me get through all of that. Or what I learned. There's a couple of things. First of all, the kids did help, like having kids, because that was an outside force to help me. So for those of you who don't have kids, you don't have to have kids in order to get out. Like, you can get out, you can believe, because there's a lot of lies and webs that are woven, especially in domestic abuse, that hold us within. And I've lost dear friends to domestic abuse that have been murdered because of domestic abuse. And so I understand. firsthand and very intimately. That again, I almost lost my life a couple of times. The thing is there is help out there. You just have to find it. You might have to hide, but you have to like build the strength up within yourself to be able to like make that step, because a lot of domestic abuse doesn't go that far. There are those that will, but a lot of domestic abuse, and a domestic abuse can look many ways. And by the way, sexual abuse is also domestic abuse. And a lot of times women try to tell themselves otherwise, and men, mostly women, because their significant others, take advantage of them. And the thing is first of all, admitting to yourself that you are in that type of relationship and then seeking for help. But I'm the person, even when I got out of the domestic abuse, I've done a lot of self-healing. I had to look within and heal the patterns and the root things that had happened. And this has been many years. Cancer, definitely at the age of 25, catapulted me more into the healing process. I had to forgive all of the crap. It didn't mean that I approved what they did. It didn't mean that I agreed with what they did. It didn't mean that I forgot what they did, but I no longer allowed it to control my narrative. My scars are a part of me, but my scars are not me. And that's the internal and the external scars, which I have both. And the thing is that healing process never ends. Something can throw us back into that moment, in the moment of time, no matter how much time has passed, no matter how much healing has been done. And the thing is that you just continue to build the foundations and the fundamentals within yourself. Do that self-healing, really look within, don't play victim. And I say that with love, and just take control of the narrative to pull yourself out. And really, sometimes it's hard truths. Like, it wasn't until, and I was married, and my ex-husband and I wasn't married to the kids' father, but my ex-husband, who again is my best friend, we love each other. We didn't divorce for lack of love. But there was a moment where after our divorce, after 8 years and 9 years of being married, it's all blurry, that I realized like I was only accepting tough love. I was only allowing hardship for love, because that's the only love I thought I deserved. And that continued to put me into these like situations, not just romantically, but also in agreements in business and friendships, and the way that I treated myself, which was probably the most important, is that. And I had to heal that. I had to first, it's kind of like the 12-step program. First, I had to admit it, then I had to heal from it. And it's a never ending process. And I say that with love and beauty, because we continue to like just dig deeper and like heal ourselves more and learn more from it if we choose. And that's the biggest thing, if we choose to do so. So that's kind of my journey. And yeah, we can talk hours about that. Like I told you earlier, I'm writing a book about this.
So. Yeah, exactly. We'll come to the book in a moment. It's interesting what you shared, because obviously I can relate to a lot of it through my journey. And especially when you said about, I think because I was the breadwinner in my relationship. So because everybody saw me outside the relationship, like friends and family, as like the leader and the boss and all that kind of stuff. I was in denial that I was in an abusive relationship for so long, because I perceived that it would be like this weak woman who, the husband was the boss and they didn't have any financial income, all this kind of shit that was in my head. So I think you're right. I think it's the first step. Well, I know you're right. Is really accepting that you are in that abusive relationship. Because I gave a lot of excuse, because I think because I was a solution person as well. I'm like looking to solve this all the time. I was looking to find a solution to fix it. There's a problem.
Absolutely.
Let's sort this out, sort of thing. When actually it was like, no, this is too toxic. I need to walk away. But I think like you're saying about how, things with friendships or business, there's sometimes this subconscious. I realized I was quite a people pleaser for quite a long time. And it was something that I really, really needed to work on, because that wasn't going to serve me in business or any other relationships. So I don't know if you can relate to that as well.
I do want to make a note about that because I think we touched on a huge point, is that we also have to find our dynamic, like why we're in that relationship. So even though I was really strong-willed and all of this, and what happened was I was embarrassed. So I withdrew because I met my biological father when I was older, but I withdrew from him. And actually I didn't get to be around him before he passed. I was pregnant with my daughter and all these other things. So I did that because I was strong. I was trying to fix him. I wanted to save him. So I was like, I wanted, because I had to raise my siblings when I was young, and even sometimes my parents, I was the caretaker and the fixer. And so I realized that in that relationship. And at the end of the day, I realized, like, it's not my job to fix him. I cannot. It's his job.
Exactly. I had that.
Yeah.
And I think moving forward, like you're saying, is that we're always working on these sort of subconscious behaviors that are instilled in us. Actually, a lot of it is just being aware of them, I think. Because I realized I was such a people pleaser, which I never would have said I was, but I actually realized that I have been, and that isn't good in business or in personal relationships. And so there's a lot of subconscious things you realize about yourself and be open to work on them moving forward.
Absolutely. Able to work on them. I think that's important, because you know what? And this might rub some people the wrong way. However, we have responsibility on our side as well. And that could be that we're staying in things, or we're enabling. I'm not saying we're bringing the abuse on. That is not at all what I'm saying. However, if we're in a dynamic
within it,
correct.
Totally agree.
Where's the responsibility lie for us? Because we can't control anybody else's actions and thoughts and responsibility, but we can control ours.
Yeah, exactly. I know we could talk about this topic for ages.
We could.
What I'm going to move on to, because I know you have a book coming sort of autumn time, haven't you? So tell us about that.
Yes. Well, the title is not official, but the subtitle is Stories, Reflections, and Life Lessons. But essentially, I have co-authored already 2 business books, entrepreneurial self-help books. And however, with my co-author, and we have a whole empire, but with this one, it is finally like essentially the lessons I've learned. I am one who does a lot of work, and I am very spiritual, will say, where I definitely look for the lessons and things I see outside of what the norm is. And so this book it's super emotional. I've gotten a lot of the first draft done and had some pre-readers, including my ex-husband, and it's definitely very emotional, but it's not about that. It is to inspire others that they can make a difference, that they can make the change, that they can be the change, and that no matter how hard our circumstances are, there are people out there that can help you and support you. And that, if we choose to look at life through a different lens, if we choose to heal from the trauma of the past, regardless of the level of trauma, do not compare yourself to somebody else, that we can unbreak those bonds. Like, we can break those bonds of like the karmic history or this lifetime, and like for our children or for those that are watching us, like, and we can just have a better life. We can have a life that we deserve, a life that we want, and a life that we make, right? Yeah. Our lives are a product of how we think and how we do and what we do and who we be, right? All of that. Exactly. And that's what this book is about. It's and it's a very interesting way. It's for those that have ADHD or ADD will really love it, because it's not linear, it's not consecutive. It's either chapters based on life lessons or a particular like story that there are life lessons and reflections in that. And it's just like, it jumps around with all the different things that have happened in my life, and some things that even my family doesn't know yet, that they will get. Well, my ex is reading it now, but my kids will get a copy before it goes out, just because I've always known that I am a person to, like, I came into this life to create change, to be the change, as Gandhi says, that you want to see in this world. Like, I've known since a young child, I heard it very clearly that I am that, like, that is one of my life's purposes.
Yeah.
And this book is just a legacy of that, because I know it will be here long after I'm gone. And I hope that it continues to inspire others, no matter what your history is, that you can be different, you can do different, you can make different if you choose.
Yeah, yeah. I loved reading some of your bio where it was all about making it happen. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, don't live your life wanting to do these things and dreaming about it. Just find a
Yes.
way, take that first step, fail forward, and just make shit happen, really.
Absolutely.
So for anyone listening that's thinking, oh, I really want to find Lynn's book, what we'll do is, if you keep us posted when it's out, because obviously this is evergreen interview, we'll put the links probably after sort of September, October time of this year. So 2024, if you're listening in 2024, we'll put the links in the show notes if you're listening on iTunes or any of the podcasting channels. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hello, you'll see it in the comments section. We'll also put your other co-authored business books in there, and also your website and everything to be able to get in touch with Lynn. What is the best way for people to reach out to you, or if they're maybe thinking, do you work with people who are new to entrepreneurship, who want to make that first step?
Do as of now, but I also have a global team of coaches and consultants that I work with on my team, that if I'm not the right fit, they can be. So please feel free to reach out. We just have a quick half-hour chat. I tend to only take on so many solopreneurs, because it is, and the only reason why I still do is because it is like, I love entrepreneurship at its core, and I love helping. So I have different programs, and my co-author and I have created some digital courses and stuff that we can help new entrepreneurs as well. But definitely, I would love to have a chat and see if it's the right fit. So they can always jump on my Calendly link and yeah, or social media.
Is there a particular social platform that you hang out more on? Because I think sometimes we're kind of on them all, but sometimes there's one that we kind of prefer. Or would you say?
Since I have a team of VAs, it's a bit difficult nowadays because I actually have 3 virtual assistants, for those who don't know what a VA is, because I know some people still ask me, what's a VA?
Yeah.
So with that being said, regardless of what platform, usually depending on, regardless of what platform, I will get it, because my VA will be like, Lynn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great meeting you. I know that there's so much synergy. I know that we could talk for longer. I just really want to thank you and commend you for your journey, and just being the inspiration you are, and just being vulnerable and sharing everything you shared, because I think it really does it's the whole reason I put this podcast together, that I think we need to hear more of the real stories. To help people who could be going through whatever it is, to know that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. There's nothing
Absolutely.
that we give ourselves, bread in the head gives us, oh, we can't do that because of this, and it tends to be our victim mindset. But just really, really thank you for sharing everything you shared.
Well, thank you, Anna. Thank you for creating the space and allowing people like myself to come in and share along with your journey. So I really appreciate this.
Brilliant. I always ask everybody the same question, which I know you know what it is because I pre-warned you about it. But on the birthday episode, what was fab is that we cut the answers to this question and had them back to back. So you might get featured on our next birthday episode. And so it's a great question, no right or wrong. What does freedom mean to you, Lynn?
I'd say choice. We always have a choice, and it's in that choice that we have freedom if we choose.
Absolutely. Love it. Really succinct. Yeah. I love it. Well, it's been great meeting you.
Same, Anna.
And stay in touch. We can help you in any way. I'll always reach out to you. And if I'm in Bangkok, how long are you in Bangkok for?
I have no idea. I kind of go with the flow. But it's a hub for now.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, enjoy Bangkok, and we'll speak soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.